With CitrusTV Sports, I'm Eli Lesser, and I am joined by Toronto FC goalkeeper and MLS Cup winner, USMNT, and former Syracuse star Alex Bono. Alex, how are you doing today?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I am fantastic. Love doing these interviews, and very excited to have a goalkeeper on because it's different. Have not had a goalkeeper yet from the former Syracuse players, so maybe we could touch upon that as well. How have you been staying in shape during this quarantine?
It's been tough, man. I've been trying to sneak outside and run. Try and pick some odd hours when there's not so many people around. When the streets are pretty clear. The team was really great about. They brought me a stationary bike that I've got just kind of stowed in the apartment. So I've been using that every day, trying to stay in shape as much as possible. We have workouts that we do on Zoom every day. So we log on, we sign in with the team, and our strength conditioning guy takes us through a workout. So it's been good. It's been more hectic, and I've been busier than I thought I would be during this time, which I'm grateful for. But obviously, it's tough times for everybody, and I think it's so important that people stay inside and people take the right precautions as we all are doing. So normal life and our season can get back underway as soon as possible.
What are some of the drills that you could do to stay in shape as a keeper?
This is the toughest one that I've come across so far. I Amazoned myself some tennis balls to do some juggling and some handling per se. The team sent us out some soccer balls as well, so just kind of doing different, like when I used to go to camps when I was a kid, the little warm-ups that they'd have you do with the ball and catching and doing it in between your legs and all this stuff. And I love juggling. I think that really helps with hand-eye coordination. So I've been doing a ton of that. But it's obviously difficult. Like, I haven't been diving at all, obviously. Obviously they've closed all the parks here and everything too. So even public fields and tracks are locked. So it's been difficult, but everyone's trying to make do with what we got at this point in time.
Awesome. So I want to rewind back to high school, Alex. I know you're
Okay.
from the state of New York. Did you grow up a Syracuse fan, or what helped you
Yeah.
make your decision to come to Syracuse?
So my parents still to this day live in Baldwinsville, which is a small suburb of Syracuse, about 20 minutes away from campus. So I was born and raised there. And the funny story, and the coaches get mad at me every time I say it, is that when I was a kid, I'm diehard Syracuse basketball, football, everything. Like that's my blood, I bleed orange, as they say. So I grew up, I loved Syracuse sports, and just like a huge, like one of the greatest moments of my childhood was '03 national championship game. And
Yeah.
my parents let me stay up on a Monday night and watch it. And, it was just amazing. But I never wanted to go to Syracuse. I played soccer in high school. Obviously, I played U.S. Development Academy for Empire United, based out of Rochester. And so when I started to get recruited from schools, I was like, I kind of want to, spread my wings and kind of get out of my bubble of Syracuse, And at the time, the team wasn't very good. Coach Mack had just taken over. I didn't know anything about college soccer, really. My grandfather, when, he was a football, basketball guy. My whole family's football, basketball, lacrosse guy. And so not knowing much about soccer, he clipped out the top 25 rankings for NCAA one year, the year I was getting recruited. And he said, well, these are the schools that, you should be shooting for. Like, I want to see you playing on one of these teams that's in the top 25, And so I went on a few visits to different places. I went and visited St. John's, Georgetown, who were those teams that were in the top 25, top 10. And Syracuse was just kind of really, they made a hard push. I knew I wanted to do broadcasting, so obviously having Newhouse there was, at the end of the day, was a huge bonus for me. And I realized that going to Syracuse, politics aside, it's going to give me an opportunity to play 4 years. It's going to give me an opportunity to get an amazing education. And being close to your family and being able to visit and have them come out and see your games, every single one of them is, you can't put a price on that. So at the end of the day, it was my junior year of high school, and I made the decision. I remember asking the teacher if I could use the school phone because my dad had been texting me about, that we're getting the final offer coming through. Like, if it's this, we can do it. Let's do it. So I made up some garbage excuse to my teacher, and she let me use the phone. And I remember I called him, and I said, "Is it what we want?" He said, "If you want to go, you got it." And I said, "Done. Tell him I'm in." And I remember the day like it was yesterday. And from then on, I was committed to go to Syracuse.
So we know what you did on the field. There was that 2014 nice run. But I want to talk about being a Syracuse student and being a student athlete. What were some of the things that you did to keep that balance of being an athlete as well as maintaining academics?
Yeah, that time management is obviously a huge part of university for any student. So when you're a freshman, when I was a freshman, we had like study hall basically. So if it was a certain amount of hours a week, I think it was maybe 10 hours a week, we had to scan our Syracuse ID in at the over at Manly, and we would sit there, and they had computers, they had people that would help you with your work, tutors, that sort of thing. So we would sit there, groups of 3 or 4 of us that were taking similar classes, and we would do that. So obviously that helps with your time management when you're forced to have to be doing schoolwork. I found that road trips, like anything that was 6 hours on a bus we would drive to, those road trips were really helpful because it's just kind of what better do you have to do, right, than sit in a hotel room and do your schoolwork, right? So those are really helpful. Obviously, it's a lot sometimes, and the workload gets to be heavy, and you're just kind of like digging yourself out of holes, and you're kind of trying to finish papers at the deadline and turn them in. But I'm a big advocate. Like, I used to get home from class after training that day. I used to do the homework for the next week or for the next class for the classes that I just took that day. And I found that to be really, really helpful for me. Is like, yeah, it sucks. Yeah, my friends are playing PlayStation or hanging out playing cards or going to Goldstein to, have dinner. But the sooner you get it done, right, then you got your weekend. Then you got your game on Saturday, and you don't have to sit out after your game and do work, right? You can hang out with your guys then. So, yeah, I found it I had some good planning and some good help along the way.
Yeah. I'd like to hear about some of the camaraderie that you had with your teammates, maybe specifically during 2014 or just during your time at Syracuse. What did it mean to have those teammates, and what were some of your favorite memories with certain guys?
Those were some of the best moments of my life, man. I had so much fun at Syracuse with those guys. We had such a great group of guys from day one when we made the tournament for the first time in all those years. And we totally turned it around in our last year of the Big East to my last day on campus. Like, the turnover was fairly minimal, to be honest, in terms of the core group. I got there, and the group of sophomores were, Skylar Thomas, Jordan Morrell, Tyler Hilliard, Nick Perea, that group of guys. And then the seniors were, the relics of the old coach that stuck around, that Matt kept around. Like Mark Brody was just such a great guy, and Louis Clark and Ted Cribley. I just saw Ted when I was over in England over the off season, so I got to hang out with him, and I keep in touch with all these guys all the time. I was talking to Skylar yesterday, and one of my best friends growing up that I played academy with was Liam Callahan, and he grew up in Buffalo. He went to Villanova, which I also looked at, and I obviously didn't end up going there. And he calls me after his freshman year. He's like, "Dude, I hate it here." I said, "Come on, let's go. Like, I'm going to talk to the coaches. We're going to get you in. Like, we'll get you to Syracuse, and we'll just we'll work with it. We'll be back home, basically." And so he ended up coming. So that was kind of, I'm not sure if that's NCAA, legally NCAA, but oh well. It worked out. And, I still talk to those guys all the time. So, I mean, in terms of, like, specific moments, I remember my freshman year when we won our half of the Big East. That game and the fun we had after that was crazy. Obviously, when we got our first number 1 ranking, That was obviously massive for us. But the thing that I remember sitting in the locker room the morning the rankings came out, and the afternoon that the morning rankings came out, and we're sitting there, and everyone, it was just like so normal. It was like we had gotten to a point where that was our expectation, that it wasn't even like no one celebrated, no one did this, did that, right? Like they had all the graphics and stuff like for your Instagram and your Twitter and whatever. It's like, yeah, it's great to put out there, but like we were so focused on, like, no one gets a trophy for being ranked number one during the season, right? Mm-hmm. Like we were so focused on the end goal of that season that it was just business as usual. And that said so much about that group of players that we had that year, that it was so special. Those guys, the Skylar and Jordan, they were seniors. Like they were ready to take the jump and try and make it to the professional level. And those guys did such a good job of leading our group and making sure that everyone stayed focused and you know, at the task at hand, making sure every day at training it's like, okay, we're number one, great. But instead of resting on that, everyone behind us puts a target on our back. And the fact that you guys and as a group, we kept everyone's head above water and everyone's head small, being able to fit through the door, making sure that we could push on a daily basis.
So going from a soccer program that was just establishing itself as a winning program to being drafted by Toronto FC, a club that before you got there had not made the playoffs at all, and since has become arguably a dynasty in MLS, you struck gold. How does it feel? Yeah. Or how was it being selected to a team where the culture was changing for the better?
Yeah, that's something, you know, they say that obviously the biggest jump that you're ever going to take in your career is going from a college amateur level to a professional level. And so coming into a team like Toronto FC, who had Michael Bradley had been there for a year already. We had just signed Josie and Sebastian Giovinco. And I remember sitting I got invited to national team camp that January camp. And Josie had come in late because he didn't have to be there because he was a European guy, so January camp's not a window for them. Mm-hmm. But the transfer just came through, and he's like, I'll come by to national team camp. So he came, and I messed with him about it, before this quarantine started. He's like, oh man, I remember that January camp you were in 2015. I was like, yeah. I remember it vividly. I said, you remember what you said to me? And I said, you walked into the locker room and you're shaking everyone's hand. You're like, hey, nice to meet you. I'm Josie. And I was like, I'm Alex. Nice to meet you. And I shook his hand. And he goes, who do you play for? And the draft had happened like 3 days before. I kid you not. Like, I just gotten drafted to Toronto. And it's like, Josie had just gotten sold to Toronto. And he's like, yeah, so who do you play for? I was like, oh, I actually, I just got drafted to Toronto. And he goes, no way. Like, that's where I'm going. I was like, yeah, I know. Duh. Like, are you kidding me? Obviously, I know that you're my teammate now. Yeah. And he's like, oh, we'll be teammates. That's dope. And he's like, have you been in Toronto? Yeah. Have you met he's throwing out all these guys that are like, high up in our ownership group. And obviously they had taken him out for dinner and stuff when he had come to visit the city. And I'm like, no, I've been here and I didn't even go to the draft. Like, I've been at camp and this and that. He's like, oh man, like, you're going to love it, this and that. But it was just so funny that, like, it made me really realize how small fish in a big pond you really are when you first come into the league. Especially when, you come to a team that's like, okay, this team's not traditionally very good, right? Mm-hmm. They've never made the playoffs. But at the same time, you're saying, this is a good opportunity for me to maybe make a jump, like be able to get some minutes. And then you get there and you have to try and adjust to the level and integrate yourself into the team. And it's difficult. Like, I'm so glad that we have guys here that are, good with incoming guys, good with rookies. We have a really respectful group. And that starts with Michael. Like, he's the captain. Everything runs through him. He's that boss in the locker room. So to be able to have him there and kind of set the tone of that serious, like, work comes first type of mentality was obviously eye-opening and very helpful for me as a young player. So that was obviously a big help. You walk into the locker room, you see him, and you're like, oh, like, okay, like it's real. This is real. You just got done watching them in 2014 for the World Cup. right? And now I'm sitting in the locker room with these guys. Like, okay, but now they're my peers, right? Act like they're your peers. Be respectful. At the same time, like you have to meet them at a certain level, right? Like they're not going to drag you along. You have to make sure that you're doing everything you can to satisfy what your expectations within the group are, and whatever role that may be. And that's just kind of the everyone has a role. You know, everyone's a professional. Everyone's getting paid. You have a role. So, like, obviously it was difficult for me last year when I had to take a back seat and my role changed. But you have to play that role best as you can because from guy 1 to guy 28 or 30 on the roster, throughout the course of a year, everyone needs to be focused, ready to go, whether it be training or games, you know? And that's just kind of the things that, like, when you get to the level, these are just kind of things that are ingrained in you. And I think that's just a huge difference with going from college to professional is that you gain this wisdom and you gain this respect that you didn't quite have in college. It's a little bit different. Everyone's close to your age. Professional is just so different. You know, there's a pecking order, and you got to work your way up. But it's been an amazing experience the whole way through.
Yeah, you were able to work your way up rather quickly and enough to be a starter for that big 2017 season where you guys won the treble.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that season as well as being the starter for an MLS Cup and what the MLS Cup was like?
So I'd lived it before from a backup position the year before. So 2016, I played half the season because Clint Irwin went down with an injury, tore his quad in Orlando. So I made my debut in Orlando. And then when playoffs came back around, he got healthy and Greg decided to put him back in. So I lived the playoff run from a team perspective, but I never lived it from a personal, like, on-field perspective. So making it to MLS Cup, and, like, the thing about MLS Cup is that once you win the conference final, from the moment you land down in Toronto or you wake up the next morning in Toronto to the moment MLS Cup is over, it's just like everything is obviously heightened, right? But there's so much more media coverage. There's so much more, like the posters all over the city. And we hosted both of those years.
Yeah.
The posters and the people that would recognize you and the people that, were like reaching out to you. And then you've got to worry about your family's tickets and 10 more people that came to the conference final want to come to MLS Cup and all this stuff. And you're like, oh my God, this is exhausting, you know? Outside of the fact that you're still training and preparing for a championship game, there's so much that goes into MLS Cup that is behind the scenes, you know, and our front office and the people that work up there did a fantastic job, amazing job both years of taking as much pressure off of us as possible just so you can focus on the game because there's so much other stuff floating around you. You really have to just kind of like push it out. You're like, Mom, you know what? I'll get tickets for Aunt Sue and Uncle Tom later, right? But like email this person and they're going to set you up with tickets. You want to get on the field after, email this person. They'll set you up with on-field stuff after the game. Like they were, the team was so helpful in doing most of that stuff for us that they allowed us to just focus on the game. But I guess the point is, like, after living it, and 2017 was so different because I actually have the same feelings of when we got that number 1 ranking at Syracuse, where there was a feeling every single time you stepped in the locker room for games that you were going to go out there and win. Like there was no other option. There was no other outcome for the game. And that's just like, it wasn't even like an intensity thing. It was relaxed. It's like, we got this. We're a good team. Well, let's go out there. We're going to play our game, make them adjust to us, and we're going to win. There's no way that we lose. And that's just the mentality we had going into every game. It was this ease with this intensity at the same time, with this just expectation of greatness. And you walk out after the locker room after a win, you come into the locker room and it's just back to normal life. You know, it's like, okay, next one.
Yeah.
Next one. We got a game Wednesday. Next game. And that was just so – it's such a different feeling. Like, and I've been there too where you're on a losing streak and you got to try and dig yourself out. And that is just the worst because it's tense. It's intense. People are trying to turn it around, like, personally and on an everyday basis. And you're like, oh, this is just dragging, you know? And it sucks. It sucks. when you're on the other side of that and you're at the top, and everything just came so natural. And obviously, there's hard work that goes into it, and the training and the dedication, of course. But I'm just talking about from a general sense of when we would step on the field, the expectation was we're winning. And it's like we're tied away. If we're tied in an away game and it's hot in Dallas and it's the 90th minute, we're going to push and try and win. Like, we're not going to sit on a tie. Like, that's not what we did. And that was just so, like, you see Seba or Josie sprinting in 90 minutes in, trying to press the center back.
Yeah.
Like, because we're trying to find a goal to win a game instead of take 1 point. And that's just like, when you see those guys doing the work, everyone just follows. And it just became so easy and flowing. The MLS Cup was like, it was amazing. They put, behind the south end of our stadium, they put an extra set of bleachers because the tickets sold out so quickly. 2016, the league has the rights to like a certain percentage of the tickets, right? So like the atmosphere was kind of like dull. It didn't feel like a Toronto FC home game, you know? 2017 was different. Like, it was definitely a little warmer. People were a little bit more vocal, and the when Josie scored that goal to go up 1-0, the roof came off of the building. Like, if you were in the middle of the lake, you could have heard the people at BMO Field that night, and it was unbelievable. Like, thinking about it right now, I'm getting chills, and like I picture myself in that moment. I screamed, and like when he scored, I screamed, and nothing came out. Like, I everything around me was just so loud. My entire body was shaking. It was unbelievable. Unbelievable.
My next question, you do not need to be humble for this answer. Okay. Many people consider the 2017 Toronto FC team to be the best MLS team of all time. Tell me why they're right.
Well, we set a points record. Yes, it's been broken, but they didn't win the MLS Cup that year. We set a points record. We won the Shield, so we were the best team in the regular season that year. And this is a year that, like, you know, MLS is a different game than it was a long time ago, you know? Whenever that Galaxy team had set that record, I'm not sure what year it was, but our head coach was on it. Not to take anything away from him, or that team. But the game is different now, and there's more teams. The talent level across the league has for sure raised in the last 15 years. So to sit there and compare a team in early 2000s or whatever to where the league is now is like, you know, you would never compare the TV rights from 2000 to the TV rights now, or the crowds in 2000 to the crowds now. Like, it's apples to oranges. We won the Shield. We won the Cup. Breezed through Canadian Championship that year. That's 3 trophies.
Yeah.
And the not humble part that I'm going to pull out here is that I got this ring behind me.
Let's see it. Show it off.
Right here.
Oh.
There it is.
That is gorgeous.
And we got names on the side. We got all for one. I count 3 trophies right there.
Yep.
And then we've got, what do we got in the... we got 3 gems on the bottom for the 3 trophies that we won. And then inside, it says MLS record, 69 points, 25-9. We lost 5 games.
Amazing.
We lost 5 games. Like, for anyone to sit there and say that there's been a better team in MLS history, like, it's not. Sebastian Giovinco. Tell me he's not a top 5 player to ever play in MLS. Impact, ability, talent, right? We've got U.S. national team, 2 of the biggest U.S. national team players in history playing in Canada, putting this city on the soccer map.
Still weird to think about, but yeah.
Like, it's strange, right? And it's like, we go after I don't even know if I should say this. We went after we didn't qualify for a World Cup, right? Yeah. Like, it sucks, you know. And those guys were devastated, right? And that's 2017.
Yeah.
That's the
that
year.
Time, yeah.
We're going to all these stadiums in America where you've got your national team captain and your star forward, and these guys, every time they touch the ball, are getting booed. Like, the entire stadium is like a rain shower of boos on top every time. And Michael touches the ball a lot, you know, like, he gets the ball a lot. So there's a lot of boos that are happening through entire games. And I'm like, I would go into the locker room after. I asked them after one of the games, "Did that bother you? Like, these people have absolutely, like, no respect. Like, put aside the fact, if they're booing everybody on our team, okay, like, it's an away team going to an away stadium, but they're only booing you guys. Like, they have absolutely zero respect for what you've done for the national team, for the player that you are, for the stature that you have. Like, it's a respect thing. Like, they don't have the respect for you." He's like, "Bones, if I have to worry about what Joe Schmo in Orlando sitting behind the goal thinks about us not making the World Cup, like, I can't worry about that, you know?" So it's like, obviously everyone hears it, but that fueled them.
Yeah.
Like, these guys were chasing something. Like, they're chasing this void, right? Like, they're not going to get to play in a World Cup, and they're aging. Like, who knows if they'll get another shot of the World Cup, you know? Like, I hope they both do. I think they're both still top of the American game. And I'm not, like, I'm not afraid to say it. I work with these guys every day. Like, they're, you know, Michael's a captain and Josie's a striker. Like, that's U.S. soccer. That's what I grew up on, right? Like, that's what it is. I hope they get a chance to play another World Cup. I really do. But because they didn't go to 2018, they had this, like, void that they needed to have filled. Mm-hmm. And every single time they stepped on the field, you could tell that, like, they're playing with that chip on their shoulder. And, like, everyone knew. Like, when they came back from the qualifying, the Trinidad game, no one said anything to them about it. Like, nothing. And you could tell that it was heavily weighing on, like, their day-to-day lives. You know, so anyone who's saying, like, these guys don't even care, this and that, like, no. On a day-in, day-out basis, these guys are walking in, and it's like, dude, are you okay? Like, are you okay? Like, mentally, you know? Mm-hmm. But they used it as fuel to, like, drive the whole 2017 run. And it's like, if you needed a guy, if you were out at the training field and you were done for the day, right, your training's over, and you look at who's still out in the field, I guarantee you that year there were 2 guys that were still in the field, among others, of course. But Josie was out there every single day doing extra work. Mike was out there every single day doing extra work. And you're like, oh, that's the example. Like, those are the guys you look up to. That's the example right there. Like, that's all you need to see. So, yeah, for those guys to have that chip on their shoulder and really push everyone through and carry us along with them it's crazy, man. It's crazy.
So now you're kind of in a different role than you were in the 2017 MLS Cup. How do you stay ready for your opportunities to come?
So when I first came to Toronto, I have a great relationship with my goalkeeper coach. He's been there since day one, John Conway. And he's like a mentor to me. So he's helped me a lot along the way. And the one thing I told him when I first got here, I said, the one thing you never have to worry about me is I'm never not going to give it 100%. Mm-hmm. Like, every time I step out there, work ethic is like the bare minimum, right? Like, people don't have good sessions all the time. And that's just the way it is. People have bad games. But the one thing that you can bring is your attitude and your work level every single day. Mm-hmm. And I told him, I said that the one thing you never have to worry about with me is, like, I'm going to bring it. And that's it. You know, that's all I said. He's like, good, let's do it. No matter where you are in any walk of life, in any profession, that's the one thing you can bring on a day-to-day basis. If you're an accountant, the one thing you can do is you can go in, you can have your morning coffee, and you can be focused. And you can run your numbers, right? And then you can get out. But you did your work for the day. You come in the morning for training, you have your breakfast, you have your coffee. When you step across that white line, like, it's go time, you know? And you have to bring it. You have to bring it, or else you're doing yourself a disservice, you're doing your team a disservice, and that's not the way that things go at the professional level. Obviously, it's difficult, you know? Like, it's careers are a roller coaster. If I didn't think that it was going to come back up on the other side, then, you know, it's a different conversation. But you have to stay optimistic. You have to bring it. You got to have your work ethic, and no matter what, you have to be ready, right? Mm-hmm. I've had too many sub appearances as a goalie to know that, like, 80th minute, you're not with a sub left. You can't be, like, sitting around, like, taking your shoes off. You know, like, you have to be ready. Yeah. Friday before training, if you're pissing it away, and not taking it seriously. And all of a sudden, God forbid, someone comes up with an injury. Like, you need to be ready. Because that's your opportunity, right? That's your opportunity to say, hey, I know what's happened in the past. I don't care. I'm going to take that. I'm ready to go. And I'm playing tomorrow. I'm going to show you that I should play every single game. Mm-hmm. And that's all it is, right? Like, that's the only thing you can do. You can control what you can control, and the rest has to come. And if you can do that, then, like, you catch a break somewhere, something happens where you need to play a game, and then all of a sudden you play well, and who knows, you're right back to where you were. You know, like, I feel as good as I've ever felt. I had a great preseason this year, I felt. Ready to go. You know, obviously it's difficult, and it's something that you just got to kind of brush to the side. Mm-hmm. Roll with the punches, ride the waves, because it always gets better. It always comes up on the other side.
Well, who knows, because maybe this quarantine opportunity can maybe get you the chance to move back into that number one spot come the season restarting. Hopefully the season restarts soon. Really want to see MLS soccer again. I would love to see you back on the field as the starter, because I personally think you deserve it.
Appreciate it.
That's going to wrap up our time, but thank you so much for coming on. This was an amazing interview. This was not what I was expecting heading in at all. So thank you so much for opening up, especially about the 2017 MLS team, as well as Josie Altidore and Michael Bradley, because I feel like those guys do get a lot of hate, especially Michael Bradley being the captain. I feel like a lot of it is thrown onto him. A lot of the failures have been thrown onto him kind of unjustly. So thank you for defending him and giving your take on that. And thank you for showing off the ring. Definitely not expecting that, but that was awesome. That was really cool. And
usually I'm humble about these things. It just kind of sits there. You know, I never wear it, but you're like, don't be humble about the 2017 team being the best team ever. I was like, okay, well, all right then. If you want me to talk about our team, I'll talk about the team any day of the week.
Yeah. Also, I definitely need to cop a Bono TFC kit. I need it. I need it.
All right. One's coming your way, and when all this resumes and you get back to Syracuse, bring your boys up and catch a game.
Oh, I would love to. Awesome.
For sure.
With CitrusTV Sports, I'm Eli Lester with Alex Bono, a member of the best team in MLS history. Not one of the, but I'm going to say the best team in MLS history.
Team in MLS history.
Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.